Totally Football Show today. Champions League. The old lady at the Villa, Real at Anfield, and the Parisians at the Last Chance Saloon. Who's got their name on the cup, aside from Gianni Infantino, probably? We'll be talking about that. Plus, Valencia return to action, Renaissance in Florence, and a blooming awful time for Rosa in Leipzig. All that and more in this Totally Football Show. Oof, listener, you're back. 26th of November, as I sit here in the Totally Football Show studio with legacy contributors James Horncastle.
Hello, James.
And Julien Laurens.
Hello, James.
James, you're just back from New York. New York!
Woo, New York, baby.
Yeah, that's probably my moment of the week, actually.
Was it?
The pizza there.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Which I was all ready to hate on.
Yeah.
And instead, because I think it's a kind of bastardization of actual real pizza.
Where'd you go?
I went to this place called Lindustry, where producer Lucy has also been.
Okay.
And I must say, like, the vibe in there alone, it gave me everything I wanted out of an Italian-American experience. There was a guy at the counter with a beanie hat which had Esposito Sausage Company on the back.
Nice.
And, obviously Italians would pronounce that Esposito, but we were in New York, so... and then they did this fig, jam, and bacon slice.
Right.
Which, again, I was prepared to hate on.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best slices of pizza I've ever had.
Really?
Jesus.
Even you as a connoisseur?
Have you had many slices of pizza?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it hit all the spots. There was a Materazzi shirt in there, which, again, when I walked in, I was just like, don't know about this.
Right.
But it was fantastic. It was popping.
You were there on the
Industry.
Jolly, right? In New York. You were there on the Jolly in New York, be honest.
No, I was there on very serious business.
Serious business. Fun
We
fact.
know that's not true.
Esposito means
It does, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the name given to...
Yeah. Children born non from Sporsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cultural corner.
Yeah.
All right, Jules, what have you got? We've done moment of the week already.
But that's his moment of the week, the pizza.
Okay.
It's definitely not
but
Juventus Milan, my
No.
moment of the week.
I thought maybe we were
Milan
going to
Juventus,
touch on the big international match at San Siro, Italy, France.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was
Have we had a show since then? I don't think we have.
No, because you refused to do
We
shows.
didn't do one.
Opened up a can of worms there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, anyway.
no,
France beat Italy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Set pieces.
It was just easy, but every set piece beat Italy anyway, because 6 of the last 7 goals have been conceded on set pieces, not just against France, but in the last few games. So
It was pretty painful because it was like if Italy didn't lose by a 2-goal scoreline, they would have topped that group. And
yeah.
instead, they had one job.
yeah, and now they play Germany in the quarterfinals when we play Croatia with the second leg in Paris.
France, Croatia again, huh?
Yeah, again. I mean, the Italy-Germany again, to be fair.
yeah,
It's
also.
the most tasty of the 4 quarterfinals anyway.
Very nice. What are the other two?
The Netherlands against Spain.
Ooh.
She's okay. A bit tasty, but not.
2010 World Cup
Cup
final,
final, nice, yeah.
And then Denmark, Portugal.
which is full of precedents. Okay, did you have a nice weekend though, Jules?
I had a very good weekend, yeah. My moment of the weekend was the 80th anniversary of Lille on Sunday, yeah. They celebrated with loads of former players on the pitch, flags, everything. 50,000 people at the stadium, and they beat Rennes. Georges Sampaoli Rennes 1-0. So not the greatest of games.
First game in charge.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I'm not sure if he's still good enough anyway himself, but his team are just outside of the relegation zone. They're not playing well. And for Lille, just playing 50% of their ability was enough for the win. But it was just a good atmosphere, and they wanted to celebrate their birthday with a win, and they did, and they fought in the table. So, yeah.
Very nice. Some funny teams down at the bottom of the French table. Nantes, for example.
Yeah, massive.
Big pitch invasions.
Yeah.
Disgruntled fans. All right. We've kind of gone into moment of the week territory, haven't we? Are you happy with yours, James? Anything else you want to add? Or pizza in New York?
I mean,
from a football perspective,
that's
you know
fine.
your real job,
People
like
love
as
that.
in like what you're here for, not just talk
we
about
can just
food.
go straight because Paul has sent us one. We're going to be hearing from Paul in a second.
Let's run a poll.
Here's Paul's moment of the week.
Paul, a moment of the weekend for you.
Moment of the weekend. I'm going to go to the Las Palmas Mallorca game. I don't know if you saw that ending of the game. It was a 2-2 on the injury time. Las Palmas managed to equalize a 2-goal lead from Real Mallorca. And in the last minute of the game, we could see how Berat Murici missed a clear chance. He missed a clear chance. And Jaime Mata, Las Palmas player, just decided to make fun of him, laugh him at his face. And Berat Murici, the Real Mallorca striker, just replied by showing the middle finger. He just showed out the middle finger, which was an action. And I just remind you, that was the injury time of the game with the 2-2 draw. So the VAR just basically called the referee into watching it. So the referee just was hanging onto his ear because someone was speaking to him. And yeah, basically on the audio that were released just after the game, we could hear how the VAR told the referee, look, there was a lack of respect from Berat Murici here to Jaime Mata. You should check it because that's a potential red card offense. So basically the referee goes to the VAR monitor. He saw Murici showing the middle finger to Jaime Mata, who previously had made fun of him just for the chance that he missed. So the decision of the referee here was to send off Berat Murici for the middle finger and then to punish Jaime Mata, showing off, by calling an indirect free kick inside the box of Las Palmas. And yeah, Real Mallorca had an indirect free kick inside of the box just to win the game in the last minute of the injury time. And guess what? Johan Mojica scored that indirect free kick and Real Mallorca got the win.
Wow.
3-3 to win. It was a dramatic end, and possibly the best red card that Berat Murici has seen in his whole career.
Extraordinary. No laughing, Mata. Certainly from Las Palmas' point of view. Excellent. More from Pol very shortly.
Only in La Liga. Now, it's match day 5 of the Champions League. To be fair, some of these games may be underway by the time you hear this, because there's early games on the Tuesday, and it is now Tuesday. But later on, Tuesday night, you've got Bayern against PSG, that rematch of the 2020 final. Woof. Also, 17th against 25th. Wow. There's Sporting Arsenal, Sporting with their new boss, João Pereira. That's right, he previously managed their under-23s. He started well, yes. Really well. A 6-0 victory in the Cup against Amarante. Also on Tuesday, you got Barcelona against the unbeaten Brest. We're going to ask you about that game, Jules, later. And Man City, Feyenoord, and Inter against RB Leipzig. In fact, the Tuesday sees the Italian sides with easy fixtures. They're all taking on teams who haven't got a single point yet. Slovan Bratislava for Milan, Atalanta against Young Boys, and Inter against the disastrous RB Leipzig. Wednesday,
you've forgotten about Bologna, haven't you?
Well, they play on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, they're up against 80-year-old Lille.
They are.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Also on Wednesday, Villa host Juventus in that long-awaited rematch of the European Cup quarterfinals from 1983. And the surprising Monaco, who are currently third, take on Benfica. Good knowledge.
Yeah.
And at Anfield, you got league-leading Liverpool taking on Real Madrid. Real, who are remarkably down in 18th place, 18th, and won't have Vinicius Jr. Let's hear more about that game to kick things off today with Pol Ballús.
Pol, you're back ahead of a big week for Spanish sides, not least Real Madrid with their trip to Anfield to take on Liverpool. Huge game this for Real Madrid after they got beaten at home last time by Milan in Champions League, currently lying down in 18th place in the newfangled format.
Yeah, they have a lot at stake, and they are going to miss Vinicius Jr. Because he's had an injury. He picked up an injury against Leganes on the weekend, and he's going to miss the game at Anfield, which is crucial for Real Madrid, not just to keep their hopes alive. I think that getting into the top 8 of the group stage, it's going to be difficult for them at this point. But yeah, they just cannot afford to lose more games just to not get into trouble. While Liverpool, we know the story, they are in top form, they are top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League, and I'm sure that they are going to try not to miss in a game where possibly I'm not sure that they are going to find better moments to face Real Madrid because Vinicius is not there, Eder Militao is not there. Rodrigo's not going to be there. Tchouaméni's not going to be there. So plenty of absences for Real Madrid there in a big game. But I think that Real Madrid are possibly more dangerous when they have been, when they struggle. So let's see. I wouldn't put all my money towards Liverpool in here.
Okay. They also have a terrible record against Real Madrid. You have to go all the way back to 2009 for the last time they managed to beat Real in the Champions League. Along the way, they've lost a couple of Champions League finals. There's been all sorts of other games as well. Who will be coming in for the absent Vinicius Jr.?
I think it's going to be a matter of playing Arda Güler or of playing Brahim Diaz maybe. And I think that this is going to allow, in a way, to play Mbappe more in a left-hand side role and possibly Jude Bellingham more as a false striker or a crasher into the box, which is where he excelled last season for Real Madrid. So, in a way, and don't get me wrong in that, but I think that Real Madrid has a chance to find a better balance in the team without the two monsters that they had in front in Mbappe and Vinicius. Let's see how they cope with that.
Bellingham indeed scoring in that crashing into the box type role this weekend against Leganes, a game which saw Mbappe break his scoring drought with a pair of goals, one of which was the first time that Vinicius had ever set him up for a scoring strike. And Vinicius laid him on with another brilliant pass later on, which he failed to convert. But still, what a time for Vinicius to then go off injured.
Yeah. Not a great timing for Real Madrid, who are struggling, as I was saying, with a lot of injuries. As I'm saying that they have a chance to find a better balance. I mean, it's not a good time now to miss Vinicius. Also because Vinicius wants to respond and feels like he wants to vindicate himself after this Ballon d'Or saga that we also like a few weeks ago. Let's see how Real Madrid copes with it. I think that Arda Güler was excellent against Leganes. He's one of the names that was off the radar, but he was brilliant. Jude Bellingham, as I was saying, he's been in top form over the past few weeks. We saw how he played in the international break, but I think that even before that, the way that he played didn't tally with the numbers that he had because he hadn't been scoring for a while, but he was the engine of that midfield. And I think that now this is paying him back with the goals and the assist and the involvement that many of us expect from a player like Bellingham.
Sounds like a tough game for Real Madrid then on Wednesday, whatever the recent precedents between those two sides. In La Liga, meantime, they've now narrowed the gap to Barcelona on top. To 4 points again. And they have a game in hand as well. Barcelona this weekend looked like they were home and dried. No, they were about 15 minutes to go, 2-0 up against Celta Vigo. And then everything went very wrong.
Yep. They didn't play well at all in all game. Hansi Flick after the game said that even despite the 2-0 lead in the first 70 minutes, he wasn't happy with how the team played. And then there was a sense of Barca getting too comfortable. They just lost focus. Jules Koundé committed an awful mistake on the back just to give away a goal. Then Marcus Rashford also got sent off in a way that, he's young and inexperienced, but if you play at the top flight in football, you should not commit that sort of offense to get sent off. And yet there was this feeling of lack of experience and focus, but for what we've heard, Flick was quite critical with the dressing room behind the scenes. He had a big and heated team talk after the game, just warning players not to get too comfortable because that's a long season, and as much as they started really well and impressing everyone, that can mean nothing if they don't prove themselves again. And this game that they have against Brest in the Champions League now is going to be sort of a chance for them just to prove that this can be a turning point, that they receive the message, and that Barcelona can be again back in that good form that impressed all the continent in the first weeks of the season.
Absolutely. In La Liga, they have dropped 5 points now in their last two matches. But in the Champions League, when you talk about learning lessons, they started off with a bit of a wobble, that defeat to Monaco. But since then, three straight victories, scoring 14 goals across those games. Admittedly, two of them were against Young Boys and Red Star Belgrade, but Bayern Munich absolutely hammered by them 4-1. So lots of positives for Hansi Flick as they take on Brest. Lamine Yamal won't be one of them, we understand, though.
Yep, yeah. He won't be able to play. He picked up an injury in the last Champions League game against Red Star Belgrade, and he still hasn't recovered from it. Barca expects him to be ready to play on the weekend against Las Palmas. But now in the Champions League, Barca is not going to be able to count on Lamine Yamal, which funnily enough, there's a stat that Barca has lost every game in La Liga in which Lamine Yamal has not started. Let's see what happens in the Champions League. I think that Barcelona's problems in the last couple of weeks are more football related than not just focused on Lamine Yamal, and they have to improve like as a unit. But it's quite significant that a 17-year-old, in a way, has become such important in a team like Barcelona.
The other Champions League games involving Spanish sides, Atletico Madrid, who had a slightly fortuitous victory at the weekend against Alaves. Very, very questionable handball penalty, kind of paving the way for their comeback there. We'll be taking on Sparta Prague away. They're coming off a famous victory, of course, against Paris Saint-Germain in Paris, but they don't traditionally do too well on the road. You've also got Girona up against Sturm Graz. But some other stories from La Liga, if we could, one of which is the Basque Derby, which Athletic Club de Bilbao won 1-0 against Real Sociedad. How was it, Paul?
It was I wouldn't say that it was the best Basque derby. I think it was a really intense game, but not really brilliant, really sparkling. Athletic Club was the better team. They deserved the win. I think that Nico Williams was really good. Oyan Sunset, good talent from Athletic Club as well, scored the winner. And Real Sociedad didn't really show up the first half. I mean, it was quite surprising to see after their really good performance against Barcelona. They defeated Barcelona in the previous game week of La Liga. And then they go to San Mamés to the Basque Derby. And as I was saying, they just didn't show up. Possibly the biggest talking point in Real Sociedad is what happened after the game, because Imanol, the manager, was quite critical about how the players played. He said that if it was up to him by halftime, he would have changed the whole team. Because they weren't like performing as he expected. And then on the mix zone, Mikel Oyarzabal, the club's captain, he basically questioned the manager. He said that when they have to assess all the approach and the mistake that they have committed, they all have to be self-critical, starting from the manager and from all the point of view. So it's quite intriguing what's going on behind the scenes. But for now, all the bragging rights are staying in Bilbao because they have won the last 4 Basque derbies in San Mamés. They have the right to be proud of that and just to be proud of that win that was quite deserved, as we said.
Absolutely. If it's okay for a manager to say after the game that he would have changed all the players, surely it's all right for the players to say they would have changed the manager as
absolutely.
well. Just saying. Athletic Club currently lying 5th. Only 2 points off the top 4, so what a season they're having. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the very moving scenes ahead of Valencia's game with Real Betis at the Mestalla this weekend. The first game that they'd played Valencia since back at the end of October the 27th. 2 days later, there were the terrible floods that sparked one of the worst natural disasters in recent history for Spain, with over 200 people losing their lives. And those who perished and those who contributed so much to the rescue efforts and the efforts to try and get things back to something like normal life, commemorated ahead of this game against Real Betis at the weekend.
It was breathtaking just to watch the scenes, just the silence. It was one of that moments that just witnessing the silence and the faces of the people understand, you can just understand what's going on and the magnitude of the tragedy, as you were saying. I also say that it was a powerful display from Valencia, which is a team that has a lot of academy players and homegrown players, players who have been affected in their hometowns with their families by this disaster. It comes to mind, to my mind, the young centre-back Jarek Graskowski, which is one of the most promising players that Valencia has, and his family lives in one of the towns that was affected by the floods, and he had to help with everything. Just to go back to action and to win in a powerful display, scoring 4 goals against Real Betis, it was a powerful message. I think that the whole atmosphere that was created in the stadium helped them a lot, because we know that the Valencia's stadium, Mestalla, it's quite of a dramatic atmosphere, always with really demanding fans and everything. But I think that now, everyone in Valencia was pushing towards one direction, knowing that their focus is possibly not the field issues, but whatever happens on the pitch is going to help them to be happier, to just to go through all the situation. And that was like really powerful and really nice to to witness from La Liga in this weekend.
Pol, thank you so much for that. Enjoy your travels over the next few days, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah. I'll speak next week.
Serie A, James. So exciting at the top of the table. Napoli are a point clear of 4 teams: Atalanta, Inter, Fiorentina, and Lazio. We had 2 really big fixtures in round 9, neither of which I think really lived up to the billing. Should we just kind of deal with those first of all?
In those 2 games,
Only
as well.
1 goal. It came down in Naples as Napoli took on Roma, with Romelu Lukaku ruining Ranieri's Roman return.
Yeah, against his old club, which again, I think, look, there were justifiable reasons for not making Lukaku's move permanent from Chelsea to Roma. But still, at a time when there's so much criticism of Roma's management, to see a player you let go score against you again, which kind of also happened in the defeat to Fiorentina when Bove scored. It's like, humiliation. So.
We'll talk more about Fiorentina shortly because they continue their incredible run. But Napoli, with that victory, just ahead of that pack of teams. Milan and Juve are not in that quartet of sides, just behind them. How would you characterise? What word would you use for their 0-0 draw at San Siro Saturday?
Amnesia.
Forgettable. Right. There were whistles and boos at
Would
the
you
final
have booed?
whistle.
Yeah, would you have booed like Paulo Fonseca would have if he
You
didn't
know what?
understand? You would have booed or not?
So you can look at where Milan are in the table and say, this guy should be doing better, Paulo Fonseca. But he's been really ballsy since he's been at the club because he keeps, dropping Leao. He dropped Theo Hernandez before. And after this game, he basically says that was the most boring game I've ever witnessed as a coach.
Right.
He was right. I applaud the honesty. And he sort of had another go at his players, whether that's sort of abdicating responsibility for playing 4 central midfield players and then barely getting into the Juventus box. I don't know, but he was having a go at them for not taking the initiative, not going into 1v1 situations and trying to break down the game. But I like how honest Paulo is. I mean, it's probably quite hard for the players to swallow. But yeah, dreadful game. Not really all that surprising when you look at the lineup. So I mentioned that Milan midfield where you've got Yunus Musa playing as a sort of right winger, even though he's a midfield player. You've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming into the 11, and then you've got Juventus who are playing Weston McKennie as a false 9. I think there are 8 central midfield players on the pitch out of 20 outfield players. It's no wonder no one got into the box. Fewest touches in the penalty area of any game in Serie A this season. And whereas Thiago Motta does what Thiago Motta does, which is after the game say everything's fine, liked what my players did, lots of positives. It was actually refreshing for Paulo Fonseca to kind of agree with the fans in the stands that it was awful. Even though he has subsequently come out in his pre-match press conference for this Slovan Bratislava game saying, look, you get a draw against Juventus these days, and it's like you've lost. You need to be a little bit more measured in your judgment of what my team is doing.
Maybe it's partly as well because of the swashbuckling style they showed at the Bernabeu in their last Champions League match when they won away at Real Madrid, and since then there's been the rocambolesco draw with Cagliari, and then this extremely disappointing result. Maybe that's informed.
No, you are right, because I think in big games they've turned it on and they've been exciting. You think not only about the Real Madrid game, but against Inter when they beat Inter in the derby for the first time after 6 consecutive defeats. But Juventus are mind-numbing, aren't they? I mean, people complained about Allegri, but at least Allegri would kind of hoof it and play Route 1, whereas this is just like pass it, and go nowhere.
Not much happened, yeah.
And like Dusan Vlahovic was left out of the team, ostensibly because he had an injury, although he had given some constructive criticism of Juventus' style of play while on international duty with Serbia, saying, it's actually quite nice when I come with my national team because I get to play with another striker in Alexander Mitrovic, and I've got support and all this sort of thing. It's different when I'm playing for Juventus, and then finds himself not in his team for one of the biggest games of the season.
Officially, he's
injured,
a muscle injury, no?
Officially, he's got a muscle injury. I'm not going to doubt the Juventus medical department. Cup miners played with 38-degree fever and all this sort of stuff. But some curious choices going on at Juventus, like Douglas Luiz. You'd expect this Villa game, his homecoming. Instead, the guy just can't get any minutes. And when he does get minutes, he does give penalties away and makes stupid decisions. But at the same time, they invested, 50 million? Unless you kind of write that 50 million off because they sent Illing Jr. and Baraneke the other way in what felt like a really old-school Juventus, swapsies deal. But it's just he was the big signing along with Cup Miners. He arrived very early in the transfer window. He's not playing. The other Brazilians aren't playing either, because Bremer's injured. Danilo, the captain of the team, barely ever plays. And I think, might go to Napoli in January. And so, Juventus, I think it's one thing for Motta to coach and manage a team of individuals, team of personalities in the way that he did at Bologna, where a lot of no-name guys, with all due respect to the great Lewis Ferguson. Whereas at Juve, you've got Danilo, who was captain of Brazil at one stage. You've got Vlahovic, 70 million striker. You've got you've got higher profile guys who they keep getting a lot of injuries at Juve. You're like, what are you doing in training? You're running these guys into the ground. What's going on?
What do you think is going to happen at Villa on Wednesday night?
Well, I'm in the TNT studio for this game, and I think I'm actually relieved to be in the TNT studio for it rather than at that game, because Juventus have been just so boring to watch over the last few weeks. And I was quite game for this change of management on the basis that we might see quote unquote better football at Juve. And instead, it's the same but different in that it's a lot more possession, but they are negative, I think, in possession a lot of the time, which is just passing it around with no penetration. So there's been a lot of talk this week about they just need to get Zirkzee in. He's not really making an impact at United, played really well under Motta at Bologna. Why don't you get him on loan in January? But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the solution. I don't think you can just transplant Bologna into Juventus. I don't think it's that easy. So, and the thing is with Juve, James, everyone else is running away with all these big winning streaks. Atalanta, 7 straight wins. Fiorentina, 7 straight wins. Lazio, 9 wins out of 13 games. If you're drawing all of these games, which Juventus are doing, you are gonna get left behind.
Currently in 6th spot. Jules.
I was saying Milan Skriniar, there's discussions between PSG and Juventus for him in January. And again, I know they lost Bremer and I know they probably need a defender, but that would not be, I thought, where the first signing in January would come from, because I think there's, like James said, other positions that are more important for them to fulfill maybe than another centre-back. But
anyway, they're a bit boring, Juve, so let's move on. A quick word, actually. What do you think about Roma's chances after that fairly disappointing performance? Admittedly, Ranieri's first game in charge, but their 5th defeat in their last 6 games away in Naples, and they're taking on Tottenham on Thursday. Ooh.
Yeah, I am going to this one.
yeah, that should be fun.
Well, it should be fun if you don't watch Roma. Look, part of me thinks because Spurs are the most unpredictable team in the league and they veer from one extreme to the other, that in this game, maybe, Roma actually do something. But again, they played 4-4-2 at the weekend because, Ranieri's, I'm not going to say a dinosaur, but like Ranieri, whenever he comes in, he's like, I'm going to reteach you the alphabet of football. So let's start basic, 4-4-2. And
Going to build the foundations before we decorate the walls, no?
yeah. But players playing out of position, started with a back four against Napoli at the weekend, changed to a back three, immediately conceded, and sort of left out Hummels, and then Hummels comes on and doesn't want to score another own goal, so he basically leaves. He could have stopped that cross coming in for Lukaku.
Yeah,
Well, that was the thing. Lukaku, I thought, wow, Lukaku moving at pace and beating a defender. Oh, it's
Exactly.
So left Hummels out of the starting 11, left Dybala out of the starting 11, and there was quite an interesting thing after the game where Dybala comes on for a few minutes and then basically does the warm down with the guys who didn't play at the end of the game, visibly in front of the DAZN TV cameras, DAZN being the rights holder in Italy, and they were looking over their shoulder going, what's he trying to do here? Is he basically making sure his muscles are still warm, he's not going to have a problem on the plane back, or is he trying to show everybody that he's fit and should be playing? So he was left out. Soulé, who they signed for like 25 million in the summer, still can't get in the team, even though he scored 11 goals on a crap Frosinone side last year. And so it's like, well, are these players, these signings that your young French dude Gisolfi made in the summer, really all that bad? Or so Spurs should win this game.
Okay.
They should.
Let's try and lift the mood a little bit.
No.
As we turn to Florence and the incredible Fiorentina. As you mentioned, 7 wins in a row now. The latest being that 2-0 victory at Como with goals from Adli and, of course,
I can be negative about Como if you want.
Well, that's true. That's true. But also, David De Gea.
Incredible. That double save, man, is something else.
Double or triple?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
How many clean sheets has he had? Is it 5 or something in 7 games?
Well, I mean, where he really kind of began to come to the fore was in that Milan win, where he saved 2 penalties.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when they started the season, he wasn't starting in goal. That was this guy, Terracciano, who played most of last year. And it's really interesting. If you look at when Roma sacked Daniele De Rossi, I think it was match day 3 or 4, and they were on 3 or 4 points. And Fiorentina were on the same. And Roma chose to sack De Rossi. Fiorentina basically stuck with Palladino, even though he'd complained during the transfer window that they needed to get players in. And there were a few of the fans that were kind of undecided as to whether he was the right appointment or not. And they've won pretty much every game since then. And, he changed system. So, he was this Gasperini disciple who only played 3-4-2-1. And that didn't suit the players. So, young manager adapted, started playing with a back four, changed how they mark from man-to-man to zonal, dropped some of the senior players, Biraghi, brought in David De Gea. And ever since then, they've been unstoppable. Best start to the season since Luca Toni was at the club, 05-06.
You know who they're playing next week? Inter.
Inter.
They host Inter, who are up there with them, 1 point behind Napoli. Inter, who this weekend beat Verona 5-0, scoring all 5 goals in the first half. That's the highest scoring half of football they've had away from home in 60 years, if you want a particularly niche stat. But Inter, I mean...
And they rested a load of players in this game as well.
True.
Apart from Marcus Thuram.
Yeah, he scored again.
Thuram, who gave kind of a clinic on how to go around the goalkeeper twice. Both centre-backs scored as well. Bissek Divrai.
Bissek goal was extraordinary.
And Joaquin Correa. I didn't even know he still played football.
Yeah, first goals in 2 years.
Really?
He was terrible at Marseille last season.
Yeah.
Terrible.
The Bissek goal caught my eye, though, as I'm sure most people's, because he's falling over. I mean, it's fortuitous, isn't it? Or is that some extraordinary bit of skill?
Yeah, he has to improvise. I don't think he's necessarily thinking about it. He's falling over and then he's like, oh, the ball's there. What do I do?
Stabs it. And it happens to just fly up in this perfect...
Perfect
anyway.
and kind of slightly weird trajectory. But it was... Inter just... as I've said before, they're capable of playing 20, 25 minutes of just unplayable football, which no one can match in Serie A. And often they've not scored the second, third goal. That happened, for example, against Milan in the derby, where they could have had the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th goal, and they let Juventus back in. Whereas in this, they scored all 5 goals in 45 minutes.
They're also one of 2 teams in the Champions League that have yet to concede a goal.
Yeah.
The other one being Atalanta. who are up against, who they got, Young Boys. They've just beaten Parma 3-1 at the weekend. Parma goal was very nice, actually. Cancellieri. Yeah.
The Chancellor.
And I was going to mention as well, big Patrick Vieira.
Yeah.
In a Genoa. That was a surprise, them bidding Gilardino suddenly last week.
Well, yeah, particularly considering some of the other coaches who already lost their jobs and some of the coaches who've kept their jobs down the bottom as well. And I think the owners had maybe just got a little bit fed up. I mean, the owners are 777, you know, who are in administration in the US. You know, obviously tried to take over Everton, couldn't do it. So there should be a lot of concern about how they run Genoa, and Genoa's kind of as a going concern, I suppose, until that gets resolved. But yeah, Gilla had been complaining that they'd sold Retegui to Atalanta, current top scorer in Serie A, who scored at the weekend. They sold Gudmundsson, like this Icelandic Dybala kind of guy, and they let Dragozin go to Spurs last January. So like the guy was dealt a really rough hand, and they binned him off just after they signed Balotelli on a free transfer, even though Balotelli had kind of fallen out with Vieira at Nice. So nice joined up thinking there. Yeah. And yeah, they got a 2-2 draw at the weekend.
At home to Cagliari.
They led until late as well. They could have won that. I don't think they deserved to win it, but they were in the lead.
Yeah.
Well, they're currently 1 point off the bottom three, which reads Como, Monza, and poor old Venezia. Even teams like Roma, not that far off. Roma are in 12th place right now, 3 points above the bottom
worst
three.
start since 1978.
Is it?
When they finished, I think, something like 12th or 13th out of 16 teams.
Wow.
But, I mean, before we move on to Liga, we should say that, you know, because there are all these teams really close at the top, there are people talking about Atalanta as being like Samp back in, 91?
90s,
because that Samp team came off, 7 or 8 years of Mancini, Vialli playing together and reaching Cup Winners' Cup finals and Coppa Italia finals and winning the kind of so-called minor trophies, and then having this kind of Scudetto push. And there's a feeling that, okay, Atalanta aren't the same team that they've always been over the last 7 or 8 years. There is no Mancini and Vialli there, but the club is sort of in that mature stage where they really could do it this time. I mean, they've scored 34 goals in 13 games. Lookman has been outstanding since he stopped holding out for his move to PSG. And they have a big game at the weekend. Roma. I say it's a big game. It's not a big game anymore.
Woof.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Very good. As you say, Liga awaits. And also, next up, the Bundesliga with Seb Stafford-Bloor.
Seb.
Hi, Jimbo. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. You're all packed and ready to go for Tuesday night's big game at the Allianz Arena. Woohoo! It's a rematch of the 2020 Champions League final, don't you know?
It sure is. So much seems to have changed between now and then. It feels like a decade ago. Bayern feel in a really interesting place. So winners 3-0 over Augsburg on Friday night. Harry Kane hat-trick and fastest player ever to 50 Bundesliga goals. Beat Erling Haaland's previous record by, I think, about 7 games, Jimbo. Wow. So that's pretty impressive. And yet, these games are interesting. I mean, from a German media perspective, they almost pass without comment. And Vincent Kompany's side ticking along really nicely in the Bundesliga. Uli Hoeneß has already guaranteed the championship, guaranteed a title win. It's not even December, but he's promised that to his supporters. And heading to this feels like another one of those games in which we can learn a little bit more about what Kompany's Bayern are actually like. So really, really interesting.
Okay, because the last time they had a reunion from that 2020 Champions League winning campaign, it was the rematch of the semi-final with Barcelona, and that didn't go so well. There was a couple of games back in this season's Champions League format. They lost 4-1 to Barca, and it exposed all sorts of issues that maybe some people like yourself, Seb, have been suspecting might be there for Bayern.
Yeah, I think you can zero in on a single issue there, Jimbo, because Bayern's coaching staff are pretty happy with the progress this season. I think the one area where they would concede there's still work to do is with their pressing. So in Kompany's system at the moment, particularly at the top of the pitch, when a team are working out of their own defensive third, there's a lot of effort there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of willingness to press, but there's not necessarily always accuracy in it. And that's attributable to a few things. They've chopped and changed at their fullback positions in midfield. There's a little bit of a lack of familiarity, but when they come up against a team like Barcelona versus playing against Bochum, for instance, Holstein Kiel, when these issues don't necessarily get exposed, that got pretty ruthlessly exploited. And yeah, I mean, 4-1 was pretty damning. I wouldn't say a corner was turned that night, but there's definitely kind of a markation in the sort of the before and after. And Bayern have been pretty serene since. And yet there is always that caveat when they come against the higher level of opposition, against teams that are equipped technically to play through them. What are they going to look like? And that's a big ask for Tuesday night, clearly.
It is. Tuesday night, that game taking place. So it may well be underway or even finished by the time you get this, listener. So perhaps we'll move on to the fixture that Bayern have after PSG. Small matter of Borussia Dortmund.
Goodness, Jimbo Dortmund are their own little melodrama at the moment.
But they've just won six straight at home in the league, 8 out of 8.
They have, and they're really good against Freiburg. They attack really well. I mean, they almost had their own little goal of the month competition within this game. Obviously, Felix Metscher's goal was absolutely brilliant. Lovely Julian Brandt free kick. Also, look at Max Bayer's goal and his first touch for that goal. Lovely fluid bit of centre forward play. And yeah, this came on a weekend where Borussia Dortmund are holding this is over now, were holding their AGM. And on the agenda for that, of course, the Rheinmetall issue. So a little bit of context. Back in June, they signed a sponsors agreement with Rheinmetall, who are a weapons manufacturer based in Dusseldorf, quite close by. And as you'd expect, that caused a lot of controversy, a lot of protest, a lot of cardboard tanks being laid out in protest outside Borussia Dortmund's HQ.
How many cardboard tanks?
I spotted 2 back in June, and I've seen 3 since the weekend. So
are these 3-dimensional tanks, or are they
they're proper. You know, if you were asked back in school when you were 8 years old to create a paper mache tank, this is what you might do.
But bigger.
You probably also wouldn't use some of the words that have been used on those tanks at school when you were 7.
Went to a rough school.
Well, yeah, yes, very much so. But interesting moment during the HM. So one of the members proposed a motion to end the Rheinmetall deal immediately. At the moment, it's due to end in 2027. The motion carried by, I think, about 66%, but it's advisory. So the board are not compelled to do anything with that information, but Aki Vatska has said that they're going to poll the rest of the members. So not every member was obviously physically at the AGM and unable to vote. So they're going to broaden this out, and this is underway. So nothing's going to happen immediately, but the retaliation against Rheinmetall is very, very real now. And this is a kind of an ongoing issue. And so this is the shame of it, because to me, I think maybe this was as conclusive a win as Nira Shaheen has had, certainly since that Bochum game month and a half ago. And yet the story coming out of the weekend is probably not that. And it's probably not yet what they can expect to do against Bayern next weekend either. And that's interesting because you mentioned their home record. And you mentioned, we've talked about the kind of their firepower, and one of the accusations made against this side is can't do anything without the Westfalenstadion, which is a way of saying whenever you're away from your own supporters, you lose, percentage of your power, of your ability to control and win games. And no sterner test than Bayern coming in, who, again, it really does look like they've got a couple more gears to get into. So it's sort of week of foreboding for Dortmund, potentially.
Yeah, although it could be the week that sets them back on track to claw back some positions. They're currently laid down in 5th, a full 10 points back from Bayern Munich. Bayern Leverkusen got only their second win of their last 7 games in a crazy 5-2 victory over Heidenheim. Heidenheim actually took the lead, were 2-0 up after 21 minutes, but a hat-trick for Patrick Schick, some very nice goals in there, and Granit Xhaka's was a classic slice of Xhaka, if you will, saw them on their way to, as I say, a rare victory for the reigning Bundesliga champions, who'll be hosting Salzburg in the Champions League on Tuesday. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, RB Leipzig's collapse continues, still pointless in the Champions League. Marco Rosa's side. And now that form is beginning to enter their domestic campaign as well. 2 defeats in their last 3. The most recent coming at struggling Hoffenheim, who had to usher in a new manager and promptly beat Leipzig 4-3, Seb.
Yeah, first game in charge for Christian Eiser, who came from Sturm Graz, and a great response from his Hoffenheim team. Leipzig, last time we spoke, Jimbo, it was Marco Rose, a job security question mark. Let's remove the question mark. I mean, even by Rose's own admission, he said after the game, after the 4-3 defeat, yeah, there are stormy days coming. And he was pretty damning in his assessment of the performance too. I mean, I suppose the English version of what he said was we were second best all over the pitch. And he was right. They were very, very poor in duels. Like it's a real lack of defensive intensity to them. They looked very vulnerable to transitions, which is a strange thing to say about an RB side, given what they're built to do. Really troubling times. The caveat, Jimbo, is I'm not sure what the answer is, because fundamentally, is this team demographically balanced enough to survive these moments in their season? Do they have the right parts to complement all that wonderful attacking youthful talent they have? Don't know. Is it a problem solved simply by changing a head coach? Don't know that either. Not sure what the answer is. And Marco Rose is actually the longest serving head coach they've had. And yeah, it doesn't look great. And when you start talking about, we're going about to come into a really difficult part of the season, and clouds are gathering above me. I mean, it's not it's not Churchillian, is it?
No, indeed not. It's interesting that all this fall off in domestic form is happening against the backdrop of Jurgen Klopp taking on the top job at the kind of RB network. They've got, as you say, tough games coming up. First of which will be on Wednesday night when they're up against Inter, who have yet to concede a single goal in the Champions League so far this season. That's at San Siro. RB Leipzig, on the other hand, have been conceding all sorts. They shipped 3 against Celtic, despite taking the lead in that game. They've been dropping points all over, and they've yet to pick up a single one in this campaign. Are we entering the kind of end game, do you think, for Marco Rosa? Could this week spell goodbyes?
I don't think this week will spell goodbyes. There is still positivity coming from RB themselves, and whether that's genuine or not, that's the noise. I think if form doesn't pick up, if there aren't at least signs that the form can recover before the winter break, I mean, that's a blessing and a curse for Bundesliga coaches, isn't it? Because it's enough time whereby you can reset as an organization, bring somebody else in ahead of the January transfer period too. So I think he's got a couple of weeks, but the nose is pointing down, Jimbo, definitely, and it needs that needs changing sooner rather than later. And even if they don't beat Inter, a good performance against Inter, like the one they gave against Atletico Madrid, was probably their best Champions League performance, I think. If they can return to that, that's a building block. I think that's where they are. That's how low this has sunk at the moment, that they're really in that sort of territory right now.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing what happens in that game and the other Bundesliga sides in action. Stuttgart, who are away at Zvezda, and Borussia Dortmund, who will be on their travels ahead of the Klassiker, as it's not really called, in Zagreb. Anyway, Seb, many, many thanks. Enjoy your trip to the Allianz Arena, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Julien Laurens is ready to take us through the wild and wonderful world of Ligue 1. Jules, do you want to start with the Liga or with how important that game on Wednesday? No, Tuesday. Tuesday is for PSG. Today, as we record.
Yeah, let's start there maybe.
Let's start now or never. Is it fair to say that? A
little bit. I mean, they will still have 3 more games, so I guess 9 points. 1 against City, and then
easy then.
City. Everybody beats City nowadays. Salzburg. Everybody beats Salzburg, even in Austria, and then Stuttgart. You just never know. They can play very well or they cannot play very well. So. But today in Munich tonight is the one, I think, where
Honigstein-Laurens derby.
I know it is, and I think there's a lot of things that this PSG team can do to hurt Bayern and the high line, and I think we might see Dembele as a number 9 for that reason, and them using Barcola a lot and runners from midfield like Zaire Emery or Joe Neves, who are both in great form. But I also think that the lack of efficiency up front that we've seen through this whole campaign, because they should have beaten PSV and Atletico Madrid quite comfortably and they didn't, is a problem in a game like that, because you won't have many chances, that's for sure, I think. And if you don't take them, you struggle, because I think Bayern are going to have a siege on your goal and going to attack a lot. And I think if PSG can deal with the width quite well, because that's what Kimmich does a lot, those diagonals to the opposition winger all the time. If they can prevent the crosses from coming, or defending well on crosses from Marquinhos, Pacho, and then whoever the goalkeeper is, whether that's Safonov or Donnarumma. But neither of them, I think, are great on crosses, so that's a bit of a worry too. But really, Bayern should be the favourite simply because they are home and because they have been slightly better, not much better, but slightly better in the Champions League than PSG.
To what extent does Barcelona, another of the teams that had a bit of a grudge with Bayern, what they did to the Bavarians a month ago, to what extent does that give PSG a model?
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly that. The only
high offside line.
or certainly, I mean, you can be quite compact, but they will play super high anyway. That's what they do. They play in your own half when they, especially at home. So this is where I think the key is, and for Vitinha to find those space in behind and the runs in behind. For Dembélé, I think to come short, because he doesn't really run in behind. It's more you give him the ball to his feet and then he will go 1v1 against you. Whereas I think if you play him as a false nine, he can free a lot of space for more runners if you want. Even a Colomwani, I don't think would be a bad idea. He won't start him because he hates him. But I think Luis Enrique could be very inspired to start him in a game like that, because that's what he does really well. He runs in behind a lot. But we see, I think it's quite a fascinating one. My heart is going to beat a lot because you could also get spanked by Bayern 3-0, really. But I think it would be quite fascinating tactically to see what Luis Enrique does. And Vincent Kompany was really, really kind to PSG. So like, this is a really good team. I know it's not happening for them in the Champions League and people are criticizing them, but it's a really good team.
Is that because he's just learned from Pep?
Yeah, no, maybe. And maybe it's just between managers you're kind to each other kind of thing, you know.
Maybe
from
so.
Mourinho, but yeah, it'd be good.
That'll all be left on the sidelines tonight when the whistle blows.
Yeah.
Are you on TNT tonight, Jules?
I am on the Gold Show.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to experience you experiencing this game.
Yeah. Yeah, you've never seen that before.
Unless for any reason you chose not to. Just tune in for the whole game. I think it sounds like the game of the evening.
Yeah,
I miss Jules reaching for my knee or my thigh during these PSG tormenting games. You know?
I know. They torment me a lot.
So Bayern on a 6-game winning run coming into this game, but PSG are on a brilliant run in La Ligue, in Ligue 1.
In le championnat, yeah.
Oui.
L'Hexagon.
Oui.
3-0 trophy as well this year.
3-0 over Toulouse on Friday. Oh, what a lovely goal from Jean Neves.
Oh, amazing. He's been great.
Jean Neves.
Jean Neves. And then he played at left back too for the second half, which was good. PSG gave up a few chances, and I think the expected goal to Toulouse is higher than PSG at the Parc des Princes, which is very rare. But they didn't take their chances, and PSG scored 2 more a bit late. But
if only their name was XG and not Toulouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's another win. It's still a 6-point gap with Monaco,
6 points,
who also won and who play Marseille, so second v third on Sunday night.
Yeah.
So another opportunity maybe for PSG to make even more ground over one of them too, because they play Nantes, who's at the bottom of the table and not good. So yeah. But this is the two different sides of this PSG team. Really good in the league, too good for the league, really.
Right. And
so far, not good enough in the Champions League.
Okay, Monaco last weekend playing the team that's the direct opposite of that, Brest, who are in 4th spot in the Champions League, and probably, but very much not in Liga.
Struggling,
yeah. So that was Brest did well in this game, no? 3-2.
Yeah, it was not bad, but Monaco were always better. You could see they were always much better. Mahrez Akliouche, the young winger, who is so good and so promising and should be called up very soon by Deschamps, unless he chooses to play for another country, which is always possible. But yeah, outstanding talent. Not just because
does he have the choice of them all?
He has a choice. I also, as a Paris-born and bred kid, he's obviously very special.
What about Ben Seguir and his performance?
Yeah, Ben Seguir was very good, and one plays on the right, one plays on the left. Ben Seguir has chosen to play for Tunisia, for example, and not for France. But 2 outstanding talents. And I guess Monaco played Benfica. We said Angel Di Maria scored a hat-trick and a lovely overhead kick at the weekend in the Cup.
What a goal.
Was nice at 36. But I think this Monaco team have a lot of really, really good things at the moment to beat Benfica and continue their incredible start. They're unbeaten in this Champions League so far.
That would be remarkable. Brest taking on Barcelona.
Yeah.
Kryptonite, the French teams for Barcelona. They lost to Monaco,
Yeah.
That's true.
Lost
who
to
play in
PSG
red and
last
white.
season.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brest who've lost Pierre Lees-Melou.
Yeah.
Lees-Melou? Lees-Melou?
Lis-Melou.
Lees-Melou.
Yeah. Norwich legend, Pierre Lis-Melou.
Brest who lost Pierre Lees-Melou.
Yeah. The playmaker, yeah.
So that's
bad.
That's bad.
It's really bad. He's so good, has been so good for them. They're taking 5,000 fans to the Montjuic Stadium, to Barcelona, which they've never had so many away fans going to a single game. This is incredible for them.
Right.
It is. They will have Real Madrid as well at I think the last game of the Champions League at home. But this is the biggest really game of their history. This is incredible for them to go and play Barcelona, even if it's not at the Camp Nou, but it's still in the Champions League. I think they can't really quite believe that this is happening.
Right.
And I think that's why also their form in the league has been so poor, is because they just keep, as we said, I think in the last show, they just keep thinking about the Champions League. They live for that. Those players who've never played in that competition before will probably never play again. So this is it, really. So I don't think they care too much about the league as long as they stay up. It's all about those emotions in the Champions League.
They're 3 points above the bottom three at the moment, but Champions League. They helped Bayer Leverkusen to draw. So
At home. And Eric Roy said yesterday, he said, we've played great before last season and even this season against top clubs. So there's no reason why we could not do it again. Okay, this is another level, even without Lamine for Barcelona. But Rafinha and Lewandowski and Pedri and all of that would be very special. Lewandowski on 99 Champions League goals, by the way. Remember when he scored 2 in the last game and Hansi Flick took him off and then said, I didn't know, he just needed one more to get to the 100 mark, so I would have left him.
The third player to reach the century.
Yeah.
Who were the other two, Jules?
Let me guess. It's more, okay, the quiz question for you and all the listeners.
Oh, yeah.
It's not so much who are the other two, but how many goals do Cristiano and Messi have in the Champions League? Go on.
Lots.
So
James is stunned that it's Cristiano and Messi.
Cristiano and Messi.
Yeah, so Cristiano is number 1. How many goals in the Champions League? So it's more than 100, so come on, I have a guess.
Well,
James?
there's a lot of
James
numbers that are
probably
more than
knows.
100. Do you know?
173.
I wanted to say 176, but I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, that's a bit high.
Okay.
It's low. That's a lot of goals.
It is a lot of
So
goals.
140 for Cristiano
Okay.
and 129 for Messi. But Lewandowski has a higher ratio goal per game than
Really?
them two. Yeah, Cristiano is 0.77, Messi 0.79. Okay, Lewandowski is 0.80, so it's not too much, but still.
All right, and he's still playing in the
And
Champions
still
League.
playing.
So,
And then you've
Better
got...
player, Julien is saying.
yeah.
I'm just saying that. Kylian then is the next one still playing in activity in that
Right.
ranking with 49, so 1 away from 50 in that Liverpool game.
Remember when it used to be like Inzaghi,
Raul.
Raul,
Yeah, Raul
Yeah.
71.
and Sheva, and like those numbers were like, holy moly, like no one's
Already,
getting
yeah.
near those. And then we're talking about guys who've got almost double.
Yeah.
Right.
And Kareem, the dream, obviously stopped on 90.
Did he stop on 90? What's Erling Haaland on?
38 or something like
Really?
that. I think he's
Somewhere
We're
back.
probably in like 11 games. That's
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
excellent. Jules, you mentioned Lille before and their lovely birthday treat of beating Rennes. Anything else we should talk about?
Just two quickly
Marseille,
things.
after
Marseille,
the Zerbi meltdown last
Yeah,
week. They
they
did
won
get the
away.
victory this time.
Away.
3-1 against Lens.
Yeah, and with maybe a little bit of help from the referee, but still, it counts, and they're very good away from home. The best thing about the Zerbi this week in our the Zerbi focus, so they play Monaco on Sunday in the massive game, massive derby, and the players so they play Saturday. On Sunday, they were off and they got this message saying a special week next week because they're going into a retreat.
nice. Retiro style.
Retiro style for between Tuesday to Sunday. No
Nice.
family,
No family.
just all together. The Zerbi having this commando thing. So let's see if it works
Pants on.
on Sunday.
Where are they going?
We don't know yet. It's 2 hours away from Marseille. That's all we know. It's just like secret location.
Can't they go to that island, If, the Chateau d'If or whatever?
Yeah, or maybe Corsica. You can just
Yeah.
take the boat and cross over and go to Corsica, North Corsica. Yeah, but it's very, very Italian, obviously. Usually when things are
Camp
not
de
going
Zerbi
well,
comes back with
Camp de Zerbi.
revenge.
let's see.
Very nice. Anything else, Jules?
No, it's all good.
All right, then. That's it, then, for another exciting Continental Totally Football show. We'll be back in a week's time with more things. Lots of them. So do make sure you join us for that. Thursday, though, we'll be reviewing Tuesday and Wednesday's action in the Champions League. So why not join us for that? For now, though, many, many thanks to Pol and to Seb and Jules and James and Liam and producer Lucy and you. See you soon. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.